continue this conversation at a later date. Columnist Jeff Dunitz is up next. We'll talk more about it. And I told you we'd start right now, only it was like about 15 seconds, really. But welcome back. I'm Bill Tucker. My co-host for the hour is Heather Hansen. And joining us now in the studio is Jeff Dunitz. He's publisher for The Lid, host of The Lid radio show. He's a political columnist for The Jewish Star. Jeff, welcome. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you and I talk a lot on email and over the web, which we tried doing the Skype thing last time. That was bad.
That was bad.
It's much better with you here in person.
Absolutely.
You know, we ended the last block. Heather and I were talking with John Law Jr. and the subject of explosives came up. We don't know how many explosives this guy had, but he had a lot of explosives. And for those of you who don't know what ammonium nitrate is, that is what was used by Timothy McVeigh to blow up the building in Oklahoma City. This man's bomb was his car, was a bomb, was a serious weapon. Why aren't we not talking about we can't talk about banning explosives, that's illegal. Why are we not talking about the fact that this man had so much explosive material?
Because it doesn't meet the agenda of the left. They're too busy worrying about gun control. If he stabbed people, they wouldn't come out and say no more knives. And the fact that he used guns primarily made it easy for them to move their agenda along. Of course, we got to worry about somehow those chemicals, or figuring out a way to monitor those chemicals when somebody buys a lot of it.
But if you're going to say that we need to figure out a way to monitor that, why not a way to monitor guns as well?
We do.
When you talk about it, knives would not kill as many people as the guns did. And I think that if the explosive had killed him, we'd be talking about explosives. But here it was the guns that actually killed all these people. And
right. And it was an illegal gun, though.
It was a legal gun.
He took a legal gun and made it illegal. And according to the law, anytime you have a gun that can rapid fire like an automatic, it's illegal. You're not allowed to possess it. That's the Act of 1986.
Right, but he used the bump stick, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the bump stick is illegal?
Bump stick, yeah, well.
The guy cranked the bump stick.
Right. Making your gun automatic is illegal. So he was possessing an illegal firearm.
Okay, then I don't understand why people can buy the bump sticks then that allow them to make the gun. We just talked about that a little bit earlier. But that's the type of thing. I just think, listen, I am all for the Second Amendment, but I also think that the majority of Americans are for some form of gun control. And I don't know why we can't have conversations about what can we all agree upon and then see if that works.
But the thing is seeing how it works, you're hurting the 80 million gun owners? Something like that?
How am I hurting them by taking away a bump stick?
But I'm not talking about bump stick, because no one's talking about bump stick. They're talking about what they call assault weapons, which is, if I punch somebody, my fist is an assault weapon. But they're talking about that. They're not talking about bump sticks. They're not talking about whatever, there's other mechanics you can buy online that turns an AR-15 into a fully automatic weapon.
And I agree I do think that there's been a jump to conclusions that
Right.
have been incorrect. And I think that if people would wait a little bit and sort of see what facts come out, then we can have these types of conversations. Because it seems like we all agree that these bump sticks might not be necessary.
Well, yeah, it's going to be interesting. And we're going to pick that conversation up, actually, when we come back, because we are going down a road where something's going to have to be done to satisfy the outrage. And whether it's effective or not is another question. We'll be right back. The House, by the way, has voted on the 20-week abortion ban. We'll get into that as well. All right, welcome back. My co-host is still Heather Hansen. She hasn't gone anywhere. She's a trial attorney, host for LawNews.com, CEO of H2 Spark, and sitting next to her is Jeff Dunitz. Jeff, I want to switch gears now, actually.
Okay.
I want to go to an interesting set of polls. There are two polls out there. One is from Reuters,
right,
which says that actually, as the president has waged his war upon the media, the folks have started to think maybe the media is not so bad. And we are seeing an increase in the trust in media. That's important as I set that up, because there was a poll released today by Pew Research. It's fascinating. This is what this poll looks like. And if you will notice, Clinton and Bush were treated pretty much almost identically the same by the media. The news stories, the negative news stories, positive news stories in their first 60 days. The outlier starts with Obama. Almost no negative stories, 42% positive stories. And then we get to Mr. Trump, where it is 62%. That is almost 3 times everybody else.
Well, I kind of wish before the last two, I opened this up first thing in the morning. You know, I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning reading stuff. And I wish they gave me a warning or something, because I almost had a heart attack when I saw how anti-Trump everything was.
I don't believe you.
Okay, don't believe me. Or how pro-Obama was. And that was a complaint everybody's having. You know, it's okay to criticize the president. I criticize Trump when I think he's wrong. And I praised Obama when I thought he was right. There had to be 1 or 2 times.
Right.
But the purpose of the news is to tell the truth. And this poll shows that really they're not telling the truth, that they're being biased. And then you combine it with, you know, something you mentioned before, the MRC poll that just also tracked studies and showed that for the first 6 months of Trump's presidency, that it was, I believe it was 91% negative on certain networks.
Yeah.
You know, and I've asked people, because, you know, CNN is very big in pointing at every time Donald Trump lies, or they think Donald Trump lies. I posted something a couple of months ago that had over 1,000 lies that President Obama made. Look, he's a politician. Politicians lie. And most of them weren't covered. So why are they doing it for this president, what they haven't done for others?
The thing that worries me is that if people don't realize this as they watch the news.
Right.
You know, because if you do, and you try to do your best to get sort of a varied, you might watch some Fox, you might watch some CNN, you might watch some MSNBC and try to get a varied view. But if you don't recognize the bias because you only watch one station and you're so inherently fixed in that one station, that's worrisome to me.
Well, no, I happen to think, unfortunately, that we live in a world, and it's enabling us to where, Jeff, you can only watch the news that agrees with you. And Heather, you can watch only the news that you agree with, you know. And I am a weird guy. I will go on websites where I know I'm going to get angry or get challenged. Let's put it that way. You know, I'll go read articles and columnists on Daily Beast because I want to be challenged, and I'll go look at and read stuff on Breitbart as well. Accepting none of them as necessarily the full whole cloth truth, but I need to have that different perspective. But Jeff, I don't think we do that anymore.
I do. I have a news reader with 700 sites that I go through every day. Left, right,
but you
center.
are unusual.
Well, yeah, but as a journalist, that's my job.
But when did that change? Because when I was growing up, and I'm going to give our ages, but the news was the news. It wasn't commentary, it wasn't slanted, and it was the job of the journalist to tell the truth. I'm wondering when that change happened, and then secondly, when we came to accept it as okay.
Well, I can give you this anecdote, and it goes back to when I was a reporter when Obama first took office. There was a phone call that I made to the administration, and I was talking to somebody within the administration, and I asked them a question, and they said, I don't like that question. I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to answer this question. I said, no, that's not the question I asked. I asked this other question. Well, I'm not answering that. I said, well, do I put you down as a no comment? No, my answer to this question is boom, and it kept insisting on giving me, and I think a lot of people were so happy and so relieved that we had a black president for the first time in our history. It seemed to vindicate the United States and its history of racism. I think a lot of people felt pretty euphoric. I was happy. But it was like, guys, no, you don't get to drive the narrative. And I think a lot of people went along with that narrative. And that's the sound that we got to go to a break. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. We're into the lightning rounds of the show now. But remember, we want to hear from you. Make sure you leave a comment at newsmax.com/comments. Tweet us at Newsmax Now. Facebook is where you prefer to go. You can find us on our Newsmax page. And of course, there's always email, newsmaxnow@newsmax.com. We got less than 2.5 minutes, Jeff, and I'm going to pick, and Heather, I want to pick this conversation up. It is interesting, Heather, your reaction to all of this, because you, as a lawyer, function in an environment where the notion that you disagree with people is an acceptable thing. You can still like people and disagree. Journalists tend to have a very different culture where it's like, well, if Jeff doesn't agree with me and I don't agree with Jeff, we tend not to. There tends to be some personal animosity in there. I wish we could take a lesson for the lawyers, if you
Well,
would.
and clients often have a difficult time with that because you can argue like cats and dogs and then walk out together and say you want to get a cup of coffee. But I
Right.
do think that there's something to be said, not only to be able to agree to disagree, but to learn from one another and to learn the other side's weaknesses and strengths
Yeah.
so that you can best counter them. If you want to be good at arguing your position, study the other side.
Yeah, exactly. And Jeff, it's not like one side's got all of the answers.
No, you're right. And I think that a journalist's job is to present the truth as best as the journalist sees it. And that takes out the emotional component. But yes, there are times when people convince me that I'm totally wrong. I mean, besides my wife, who
Right.
does it all the time. But and I changed my opinion. I mean, I started out, I was so anti-Trump during the primary season.
Right.
And little by little, he grew on me.
Yeah.
You know, it happens.
Well, it's interesting too, and I've made this argument my whole career. Look, we all bring to things our perspective. So the way that you or Heather see things are going to be different from the way I see them based on my experiences and my perspective. And that's what I think is important. Is it's like I can only communicate with both of you from this perspective that I have, from where there are certain facts that are just facts that can't be ignored and shouldn't be ignored. And I'm saying all of this because we are going to have a big national debate coming up here, and it is going to focus on guns. So
What talking to different people about it does really is it expands your perspective.
it informs you.
Right?
It informs you. I got to go, Jeff. Thank you for coming in today.
Thanks
Really
for
appreciate it.
having
Good to
me.
have you in the studio. Heather and I are coming right back. Don't go anywhere. Back in just a couple of minutes.